Ready to level up your DevOps skills? Welcome to K4 Coding Academy. Master Kubernetes, Terraform, and AI. Get real-world platform engineering projects. Subscribe now and start mastering your future.
We promised DevOps would solve everything, but teams are still burning out. It is time to look beyond the pipeline. Watch the full tutorial to find out why.
Let's just go ahead and dive right into this explainer by challenging a massive, undeniable sacred cow in the software world, DevOps. For over a decade now, we've basically been told that DevOps is the absolute ultimate destination for any high-performing engineering team, right? But if that's actually true, why are so many engineering departments practically crumbling under the weight of their own infrastructure? Well, today we're going to look at the hard data, the shifting paradigms, and the rise of a totally new discipline that is fundamentally changing how we build software. Get this. A staggering 83% of software engineers report being burnt out. 83%. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand about this. This is not a motivation problem. Your developers aren't exhausted from writing code or solving tricky technical problems. I mean, that is literally what they signed up for. No, they are exhausted from inefficient processes, they're tired of wrestling with endless YAML files, getting paged at 3 a.m., and carrying this invisible but totally crushing mental burden. We essentially have a massive cognitive load problem on our hands. So, to fix this, we've got a clear 6-part rescue plan for you. We'll be covering the DevOps overload crisis, what is platform engineering, internal developer platforms, platform as a product, the 10 stages of evolution, and finally, the end of DIY. Kicking things off with Section 1, the DevOps overload crisis. Let's really understand exactly how this big promise of developer autonomy somehow turned into an absolute nightmare. If we take a look back, we can really see the progression of what developers are responsible for. Back in the 90s, waterfall, and early 2000s agile days, developers wrote code, QA tested it, and IT operations actually ran it. Pretty straightforward. But as we moved into the 2010s with the whole DevOps movement, and then the 2020s with shift left, well, the boundaries got completely blurred. Developers just slowly absorbed more and more operational responsibilities over the decades. The old wall of confusion between dev and ops was torn down, sure, but the workload? It was simply shifted straight onto the developer's shoulders until it basically broke them. And honestly, a lot of it stems from this one famous mantra. You build it, you run it. This 2006 philosophy from Amazon's Werner Vogels was really meant to create accountability and ownership. Sounds great in theory, right? But it inadvertently forced developers into grueling 24/7 on-call rotations and just massive configuration sprawl. The reality today is that only 26% of developers actually report working solely on product development. The rest, they're bogged down in what we like to call shadow operations. They're debugging Kubernetes networking or troubleshooting Terraform rather than actually building out core application features. The autonomy DevOps promised came entirely without the support infrastructure to make it sustainable. Which brings us to a really critical number, 7.4. Today, the average developer context switches between 7.4 different tools in a single sprint. Think about that for a second. We're talking source control, CI/CD tools, observability platforms, incident response dashboards, you name it, they're using it. And every single tool has its own logins, its own CLI patterns, its own mental models. This creates this invisible, totally crushing wall of cognitive load. You literally never actually finish learning a tool because, well, you're constantly interrupted to switch to another one. So how in the world do we fix this overload? Well, that brings us to Section 2. What is platform engineering? Here is the real key takeaway. Platform engineering doesn't replace DevOps, it industrializes it. DevOps was this massive cultural shift that completely succeeded in changing how we think about shared responsibility, but let's be honest, it really failed to provide the operational support to back it up. Platform engineering steps right in to provide the actual infrastructure. It brings the self-service tooling and the standardized workflows that are absolutely needed to make the DevOps culture sustainable. It takes all of that high cognitive load and drastically reduces it. To really wrap our heads around this, think of a developer like a Formula One driver. When a driver is out there on the track, their one and only focus should be keeping their eyes on the road, navigating those tight corners, and just maximizing speed. In the software world, that translates to writing, testing, and debugging core application code, because that for sure is where they provide the absolute most value. And to complete that equation, you have the elite pit crew. The platform team acts exactly like this crew. They abstract away all those messy operational complexities. The heavy infrastructure, the security compliance, the deployment pipelines, they handle the whole shebang so the driver never has to worry about hopping out and changing their own tires or refueling mid-race. The platform team basically builds a rock-solid foundation so the developers can just put the pedal to the metal and drive. Now, to actually build this seamless pit stop experience, we move to Section 3, Internal Developer Platforms, or IDPs for short. So an internal developer platform essentially acts as the storefront for your infrastructure. It's an integrated, fully self-service product. It centralizes all of that crazy underlying complexity we were just talking about, things like Kubernetes clusters or cloud provisioning, but it does it without ever removing developer autonomy. It gives your developers this one unified interface to discover services, spin up brand new projects, and view their deployments all in a single convenient place. A great example of this is Spotify. They beautifully execute this concept through what they call golden paths. These are highly supported, heavily opinionated pathways for common, everyday tasks. Say a developer wants to build a backend service or spin up a new data pipeline, the IDP provides a super clear step-by-step, self-service route that already has all the best practices, security, and tooling baked right in. Now, developers can totally still deviate from the path if they absolutely need to, but the golden path represents the path of least resistance. It lets them move incredibly quickly without having to learn every single underlying tool from scratch. But an IDP will absolutely fail if you don't adopt the right mindset. And that brings us to Section 4, Platform as a Product. This is a mantra you really have to internalize. Treat your developers as your customers. Seriously, a lot of early platform engineering efforts just totally tanked because teams simply mandated tools from the top down. Today, the most successful platform teams act a lot more like startup founders. They launch a minimum viable platform, they market it internally, and they are constantly iterating on it based on real developer feedback. Because at the end of the day, if your platform isn't solving actual daily pain points for your developers, they simply aren't going to adopt it. Now, let's tie all of this theory and practice together in Section 5, the 10 stages of evolution. Let's walk through this journey, which really tends to unfold in 3 distinct acts. First up, the problem. Organizations usually start out with siloed IT teams. Then, trying to move faster, they undergo a big DevOps culture shift. But as we know, that leads directly into extreme tool sprawl, which in turn creates a truly crushing cognitive overload for the developers. Once they recognize that crisis, we move to the solution. Platform teams are formed. These teams make sure IDPs are built, and those golden paths are paved. And they mature by treating that platform as a real product. Finally, we get to the future of the organization. They eventually realize they shouldn't be building everything from scratch, so the DIY approach gets totally abandoned. And this incredibly robust foundation ultimately leads them to the absolute peak of the mountain, AI-ready platforms. You might have noticed that step 9 was abandoning the whole do-it-yourself mentality, which segues perfectly into Section 6, the end of DIY. Here is a somewhat harsh reality that a lot of folks need to hear. Maintaining commodity infrastructure is not a competitive advantage for your business. The most successful engineering teams out there have already realized that getting completely bogged down trying to build developer portals from scratch is just a massive waste of time and resources. Maintaining a custom portal eats up so much capacity that platform teams literally never get around to building the unique golden paths that actually differentiate their developer experience. The industry has really matured, and the smart move right now is definitely to blend open source and commercial solutions rather than trying to build the whole thing yourself from the ground up. And because this new platform paradigm is just so incredibly effective, Gartner is actually predicting that by 2026, 80% of engineering organizations are going to have a dedicated platform engineering team. That is massive. This isn't just some fleeting trend, it's a completely necessary evolution simply because distributed DevOps responsibility just proved to be completely unsustainable at scale. But looking at the Gartner hype cycle reveals something even bigger on the horizon. Scaling modern tech, and especially scaling AI agents, simply isn't going to be possible without a really robust platform underneath them. In fact, Gartner rates AI agent management platforms as entirely transformational. As AI moves out of the experiment phase and into the real enterprise world, the organizations that win aren't just going to be the ones with the best models. No, they are going to be the ones with the best internal developer platforms actually governing those models. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question. You have to ask yourself and really ask your organization, are you actively building a platform that treats developer cognitive load as a truly critical metric? Or are you just sitting around waiting for your best, most exhaustive people to pack up and leave? Making that shift from you build it, you burn out, to actually sustainable software delivery absolutely requires a full commitment to the platform engineering mindset. If this explainer helped you get a handle on this massive infrastructure shift, please go ahead and hit that like button, share it with your engineering team, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives. We really want to hear from you too. Tell us all about your own platform journey and how you're handling cognitive load down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch